everybody, welcome to another video. It is, gosh, I'm actually running a bit late with this video. It is just into March and I'm just going to be doing a quick little wrap up of some of the things that I read in February. So I had a really successful February. I was quite chuffed actually with how many books I got through. I pretty much read the whole of the Ember and the Ashes series by Ava Lavender, and that was absolutely phenomenal. So I did a separate review on that. I'll link it down below for you guys. I'm not really going to go through that one. I hope you don't mind. But I'm going to go through some of the other books that I read this month. And yeah, I had one or two interesting reads in between things. So when I was done reading Ava Lavender's An Ember in the Ashes series, which I loved so much, I picked up something a little different, which was A Daily Education by Naomi Novik. All in all, very summarized. You've got Elle, and Elle goes to the school, the Scholarmans, and she is incredibly powerful. She's got quite like a dark sort of tendon of power in her, which, you know, kind of leads her towards being it tries to lead her to being very destructive, which is not something she wants to do. So it was quite interesting in that sense. It's the start of a new series. This one I actually got in, I did an unboxing of the bookcase, which is a local subscription for us here in South Africa. I'll also link that one down below for you guys. All in all, very summarized thoughts on this one is the beginning was information overload, like absolute dump, like he has a whole bunch of stuff, super confusing, super overwhelming. I wasn't sure how I felt about it, but I battled to just stop reading things. So I finished through because I was curious as to how the whole thing ended up turning out, and I must say she turned it around quite a bit. I enjoyed the end of it. It was light, sort of fun in a dark sort of way. I don't know if that makes sense, but it was a nice read, and I am going to be picking up the second one of this one. So yeah, I read this one, A Daily Education. Once I was done with that, I felt I needed to jump to something completely different. So I jumped right into rereading a book I read years and years and years ago when I was still in high school, actually, I think, or might have been just into university. But I read Night Crossing by Robert Ryan. So this is a story based on the war. We've got gosh, what's his name here? I've forgotten here. We've got three characters. We've got Ulrich, we've got Cameron, and we've got Eric. And Cameron is, he's actually a normal cop, but he kind of gets pulled into the underground of spying and sneaking because his dad's involved in that, and like real undercover spy work for, I think it's the MI6, and he ends up going to Germany to investigate this guy who's been killed, who was one of their secret agents. And while he's there, he runs into an acquaintance that he met years and years before, and this acquaintance's daughter is Ulrich, who is engaged to Eric, who ends up joining the submarine, the German submarine. Oh, my brain. Anyway, he ends up joining the submarines in the war, and this is this whole story of how the three of them kind of get pulled in together, and their story on how, gosh, there's love, there is betrayal, there is intrigue. It completely pulled me into this world of the Second World War and things that happened in the absolute brutality. My gosh, it was incredibly brutal. And just to see what people are like in that time, and oh man, I get sucked in completely when it's these, these books with the world wars that are kind of involved, and just humanity's brutality and how cruel they can sometimes be. Just absolutely guts me sometimes. But this was really beautiful. It's very, very almost factual, kind of pulls you into this whole spy world. I loved how she had Robert Ryan, I loved how he really researches things quite thoroughly. So some of the things that happened happened to her while she ended up being a German prisoner of war. She came over to England at some point, but some of the things that happened on the ships and to some of the Jewish people, well, not the Jewish people, but the German people as they were transferred. And, you know, it was, gosh, it was based on fact. He found stories, he involved them in his books. He's got a little bit of detail at the end that kind of explains where he found the stuff out and how he incorporated it. And it's enough of fact and enough of fiction to completely pull you into this absolute world and, you know, understand more of kind of what they're going through. And at the end of the day, there's still some hope. There's still some real humanity that you can hold on to. And I really thoroughly enjoyed giving this a second read. So once I was done with this, I then moved on to a book which is highly recommended when I kind of come across it. I've seen it come across a few different videos, and I have been super intrigued to read this book, and that is The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender by Lesley Walton. Guys, I cannot explain to you how beautiful this book was to read. There were patches in it where it almost felt like you're reading a prose form of poetry. It just fell off your tongue, just kind of made you warm and fuzzy inside. Just absolutely beautifully written. The imagery that's involved, sometimes and it would come across completely normal. You're reading a fact about something and it kind of goes from Ava Lavender, but it starts off with her grand story and kind of moves along to her mom's and moves along to hers, but it does it in such a way that it makes you feel like each one of them in their own way are the lead protagonist in the story, until of course you get to her and you read her history. And so let me tell you a little bit about the book. First off, you have Ava Lavender, and Ava Lavender is very different. She is born with wings. Now, when she's born, she's also born with her brother Henry. Henry is a mute for most of his young life, and Ava Lavender has got these absolutely gorgeous, proper, like feathered wings, and they cannot be separated from her. And she kind of goes through her life, her her mom, herself as well. They've got this bit of an issue with love in the sense that they pick very badly, or things go very wrong in this entire, like all the women or all the people in this family kind of go along and just have really sad, you know, traumatic. I don't want to necessarily say, well, some of it is traumatic, but rather involved and strange lives. And it comes across in such a way when you're reading it where it reads completely normal, and then you go, what? Like, how is that normal? So that was super fun to kind of come across, and you read it in such a way that it is complete and utter fantasy, and you're kind of wondering, like, is this put in such a way that it's almost like a dream, or is this a way in which they kind of hid what actually happened just to explain it in a nice way instead of the actual way? And I loved reading it, and I loved reading it. And then I have to be honest, I hit the end. There were a few triggers for me. I didn't come across warnings necessarily for that, so I'm giving a warning there. There's definitely a trigger warning in here. And I just fell apart. And oh my gosh, it was incredibly beautiful, incredibly heart-wrenching. And I'm not gonna lie, I still don't know how I feel about this book. Like, it was absolutely beautiful, and it's like, still, it stuck with me. I found myself talking to my husband about it the other day, going, I don't know how I feel about this book. Like, I cannot wrap my brain around how it ended. But for that reason alone, you really should read it. Maybe you guys can tell me, like, how you vision it ending, because it just is so open-ended. It kind of left me completely flabbergasted. So that was an experience. I don't know how to explain it. Just reading this book was just an absolute experience. Just so beautiful, and so confusing, and so overwhelming, and so intense, and so, oh my gosh. For that reason alone, read it. If you're not, you know, if you do have an issue with triggers, then maybe refrain, do some more research before you decide to kind of delve into it. But really beautiful. I just love the cover. Even the hardcover has got this beautiful little gold section here, and it's just it's going to be special to me for a long time. I might have to reread it again at some point and kind of wrap my brain around what happened and see how I feel about this one. And then I kind of went on to a series which everybody, I'm sure, has, if you haven't read it, you've heard about it somewhere along the line. I'm sure you've heard about it. And that is Sarah J Maas's A Court of Thorns and Roses and A Mr. Fury. And what is the way to explain this? So let me tell you first about the book in case you guys don't know. We have the main protagonist in the book is Fair, and she was the daughter of a wealthy merchant who lost all his wealth. She's the youngest of 3 daughters, and they are now in extreme poverty. And the only way they can survive is she goes out at, she's been out since the tender age of 14. She goes into the wood and she hunts. And she brings back what she gets, she sells some, and then she kind of keeps this family together as much as possible. And one winter, she goes out into this forest, and unwittingly, she ends up killing a wolf who turns out to be Fae, because their world is separated by this wall, and above the wall is this whole country that is dominated by Fae, by magical people. And they are portrayed as quite cruel and not exactly the nicest to be around. And she's extremely, a lot of the people are very angry towards them and are certainly not a fan because they believe them to be very cruel and unkind. And while she's on this hunt, she sees this wolf, and it's about to go for this deer, which is she's busy hunting, and she wants to kill this deer to feed her family. And it's kind of a case of, do I kill the wolf and get the deer, or do I just, if I leave it, the wolf's gonna get. So she kills the wolf, and it ends up bringing this wolf, this Fae's master, to her doorstep, and she gets taken across the wall, and she gets pulled into their politics, pulled into their situation, and it is just a harrowing downstep into this absolute world of chaos and all these things that are kind of intrigue and the secrets, and you kind of find out more as you go along. There's a lot of angst, there's a lot of intrigue. I have to be honest, gosh, it has been a long time since I have read angst that has accumulated and ended up blowing up into what is the word I'm looking for, into a situation where stuff happens that gosh, you can't want more from this book, and the way it makes you feel and leaves you. Gosh, it's like a romance book of note. And I once heard one of the booktubers that I absolutely love watching, Elliot Brooks. You guys have to watch her if you haven't seen her. She goes and describes Sarah J Maas as doing these love scenes that these sex scenes that the mountain shakes and stars fall from the sky, and my gosh, is that accurate? I cannot describe. So that is absolutely phenomenal. There's 3 books to the main series. There's a 4th one after it. She's just brought out a sequel to this, which is The Court of Silver Flames, and I love this. I will be doing a separate review on these once I finish reading the 4th one, and so keep you guys posted on that one. But yes, that's where I kind of ended up. That was my fun sort of February cycle of reads, and that was my little wrap up. If you've read any of these books and you guys had any thoughts, or especially if you have any thoughts about the beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender, please put a comment down below. If you enjoyed my video, please click on the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time for the next video. Bye.